We're here with Ross Levinson, who's the most senior executive for Yahoo in the Americas. He's responsible for about 3/4 of Yahoo's total $7 billion of revenues. Ross, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you joined Yahoo about 6 months ago from News Corp, from Fox Interactive Media. What did you find when you walked in, and what have you done in those 6 months?
Well, it's been a fast 6 months. What I found actually, what surprised me was just how big the audience was here at Yahoo. I always looked at Yahoo from afar and marveled at how well it was doing in so many categories, but now that I'm inside the four walls, it really surprised me just how many people do things around Yahoo, whether it's a breaking news story or it's mail or it's searches. I mean, it's in the hundreds of millions each and every month, and that's really astounding to think about being able to work on that sort of platform. It's been a lot of work in the first 6 months. We've changed up a lot of the senior leadership. We've brought in some real superstars who have spent the last 15 or 20 years in and around the media and internet space. And so we've been rapidly accelerating our push around content, premium content, how we sell advertising at Yahoo, what we do with the advertisers to make it more efficient for them. So we're working very hard on all those areas.
So Yahoo's always had this huge reach. It's always been big in user numbers, but there's always seemed to be that disconnect between the sheer numbers of the audience and the monetization of that audience. Are we going to see a narrowing of that gap?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think if you look at Yahoo in the abstract, for 16 years it's been the leader in what it does, and standing the test of time for 16 years is quite an accomplishment. That's part one. Part two, there aren't more than a handful of companies that are operating in the consumer media space on the internet that will generate $6 or $7 billion in revenue and $1 billion or so of profit. So, I like to tell our folks internally that for all the excitement in and around new platforms like Twitter or Facebook or Groupon, we do more revenue in a couple of weeks than Twitter will do all year. Nothing wrong with Twitter. Twitter's fantastic. But I think we have to keep it all in perspective, just how successful Yahoo has been for so long.
Now a big chunk of that revenue comes from display advertising online. You're the world's biggest internet display advertising company. You're just about to go off to the Cannes International Advertising Festival. What's the message to advertisers there? Are we going to see big changes, big innovation in display?
Yeah, well, the great thing about Cannes is that you're surrounded by creatives. This is the world's foremost market for where creatives go to celebrate their work. I think Yahoo's actually pretty unique in that it's a canvas where we tell stories. We tell stories with content, we tell story with ads. And it's a place where now people can tell stories as well. So it's a perfect place for us to go to talk about where we're moving the company in terms of digital storytelling. And I think when you look at our canvas, the ability to do creative advertising, the ability to tell creative stories around media, there's no bigger place in the world as it relates to digital media than Yahoo. And so I hope that we deliver a message to the thousands that will be there that Yahoo is a place that has immense scale, hundreds of millions, nearly 700 million people around the world use Yahoo every month. We're the number one or two site in 19 different categories: news, sports, finance, entertainment, etc. And we have incredible data in order to target advertising.
So I'd like to come back to the data point, but you describe Yahoo as a network. Now that's language we understand from television, and you talk about anchors, you talk about tent poles. What do you mean by that?
Well, pretty simple. Not something I invented. The media business has been run this way for many, many years. What's incredible about Yahoo is that when you do an event, the Oscars as one example, we cover the Oscars, as do many people. This year in particular, the telecast in the United States was down about 9%. Yahoo coverage of the Oscars was up 23%. What we did differently this year was that we packaged it, marketed it, and sold it collectively within the network of Yahoo. I talk about the network of Yahoo because I truly believe if you look at us as a network, you think about all the channels that we're running, it looks very much like a network, and it's something that advertisers and consumers understand.
Premium content doesn't come cheap. What's going to happen to your investment in premium content? Are you
Well,
going to be spending more and more on that?
Yeah, I think we have to double down on our investment in premium content. Again, I think you can divide content into three categories. Premium, really high quality stuff. Prosumer, meaning maybe in between super premium and UGC, and then the third is UGC. I think we're user-generated content. I think we're going to leave user-generated content to others. I think Yahoo's rightful place is at the top of the pyramid, and investing in content that is both original and curated is important, because Yahoo has been an aggregator of content for 16 years. I think adding a tone and a voice that is distinct to Yahoo is important. So if we take that plus the curation, plus the aggregation, I think we have a unique proposition.
So we've seen you aggregate a lot of content, but when you look at professional video content, we see sites such as Hulu carrying the US networks content. We see big checks being written by Netflix with professional content companies for movies and television series. Are we going to see Yahoo become that sort of outlet for the stuff that we see on television anyway?
Yeah, I think we're going to be very sort of systematic in our approach. I don't think you're going to see us writing a $100 million check for a series. I think we start with our strength, which is distribution. So if you were to think of us in a way as a digital MSO, somebody who could distribute professional content created by great creators around the world, that's part one. Part two, really important, is that we actually create some of our own. And when we think about the balance, I'd probably say 10 to 30% will be our own, and the rest will aggregate and curate and license from others.
And is that a big shift in the balance from what it is today?
No, I think it's more of an emphasis, certainly on video. I think we're in a sold-out position, basically, in video. We create roughly 20 original shows every month, about 200 episodes a month, and we have 9 of the top 10 original shows on the internet, more uniques just on those original shows, unique users, than all of Hulu. And I would tell you, we haven't surfaced them very well. So it's more of an emphasis, and then getting in business with really great content creators is paramount to our success.
And a lot of your content has been branded entertainment. You've worked with big advertisers to incorporate their brands into the shows you produce. Do you see an increasing appetite for that sort of content from the advertisers you talk to?
I think it's a mixture. I do. I mean, if we think back all the way to the origination of branded entertainment, you go back to the soap operas, which actually was my first job. I worked for a couple of soap operas for P&G. As the World Turns, Guiding Light, Search for Tomorrow. Shocking, I know.
Some of those soap operas are going off the air.
A lot of them are going off the air. Yeah, and so that was really the origination of how brands integrated into television. And it goes back to the radio days too, right? Gillette and others. I think it's important to be able to build with brands today. They are as much our partners as they are subsidizers. And we're really looking at those advertisers as our partners. And so with that in mind, I think you can build great creative, matching the advertiser message, the Yahoo distribution and mindset, and then real creative talent. And I think it's a recipe to win.
As I said, premium content's expensive. Do you see any great change to the value of content? As we see content going into the cloud with Apple and Google and Amazon, we see these deals being struck, digital deals being struck with the likes of Netflix and Hulu. Do you think that content producers are going to preserve their value in that world, or do you think we're going to see some erosion there?
I don't think we see erosion. I think what we're seeing is just how valuable good content is. We're a month out of the upfronts, the television upfronts here in the States, and you had the biggest upfronts in years, even though we could all look back at articles written a decade ago that said network television is dead. I think what we're learning is that in the fragmentation of the media landscape, when you're able to aggregate large amounts of people around good premium experiences, advertisers are willing to pay for that. And again, I shift that to Yahoo and think of us as a big network where we're able to aggregate large sums of people and match them with great content, but do it in a way that's personalized. That's the difference between digital businesses and traditional businesses. Our secret sauce is the technology we have underneath everything that is powering Yahoo. So we can deliver you a piece of content and advertising in context for you, personalized.
So how does that work? You have data coming at you live, real time, about how pieces of content are going over with different demographics, different viewers. How do you actually use those tools and that data to tailor different content to different users?
Well, let's take our homepage as an example, because each day we serve about 13 million different variations of our homepage. So what you see is a little different than what I see based on our likes, dislikes, preferences, clicks, etc. So we're literally able to take a look at a story. Let's just say it's a story about a basketball game that you're interested in, but maybe my wife isn't. And we're able to serve that story to you because you've shown a preference for that. But when my wife comes on that same homepage, yahoo.com, she won't see that story. So we're trying to optimize the experience for each individual consumer. And it's incredibly powerful. We just started implementing this a couple of months ago. We've seen click conversion go up 200% in the first 3 months.
So finally, you have a background as an investor in digital media. There's a great debate about whether we're living in a bubble at the moment. What do you think when you look at private and public market valuations?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a bubble, but it's a different bubble this time. I think for those companies that are going public, many of them, if not all of them, have large amounts of revenue and in many cases profits. We shift back to the first bubble, you had companies like the Globe going public that had astronomical valuations with no revenue. All they had was audience. So there's a little bit of a different bubble as it relates to companies going public. In the private market, I'm a little concerned. I think we're seeing investors chasing every deal and maybe putting in money at super high valuations. And for investors, you need to get a 2, 3, 4, 5x return. For the entrepreneurs who are taking that money and they're thinking it's a low valuation, so I'm not giving up much of my company, they get stuck. Because how do you get an exit out of that unless somebody's willing to pay just a ridiculous amount of money to buy the company? To go public, you're going to need profits, or the promise of big profits. But investors are throwing lots of money for small pieces of companies that will essentially lock the entrepreneurs in.
Russ Levinson, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.